At 0800 hours, coordinate 75 degrees north off the coast of Greenland, the collision alarm screamed frantically on the USS Gerald R forward aircraft carrier as the Aegis system suddenly went into overload. All command screens blacked out and rebooted with red system error messages. Satellite connection was lost. Link 16 was cut off. The backup optical sensors on the island began locking onto a giant heat signature tearing through the icy fog exactly 40 kilometers away. A Russian Zircon hypersonic anti-ship missile was hurtling toward the ship at sea level at Mach 9. Without radar guidance, the phalanx cannons were useless. Time to impact, 14 seconds. The $13 billion ship was now nothing more than a giant floating corpse, waiting for the steel punch that would send 5,000 sailors to the bottom of the Arctic Ocean. This disaster occurred right in the middle of Operation Arctic Sentinel, aimed at breaking Russia's blockade of the GIUK Gap to protect the Thule radar station. But the US did not expect that to hide its secrets. Moscow had turned this international sea area into an inescapable dead zone. Does the US Navy have any trump cards to turn the tide? Or will this be the end of Western ambitions in the Arctic? The electronic trap. This precarious situation stemmed from an intelligence discovery 12 hours earlier. Pentagon surveillance satellites detected Russia secretly activating a massive electronic war from the Murmansk BN system. According to military analysts, the real purpose was to conceal a large-scale nuclear missile exercise taking place right on NATO's doorstep, directly threatening the early warning capabilities of the Thule station. The CSG-12 carrier strike group, led by the supercarrier USS Gerald R immediately moved in to break the blockade. U.S. destroyers switched their AN/LQ-32V 7 systems to passive triangulation mode, silently tracking Russian transmissions without revealing their position. However, the Northern Fleet had anticipated this and set a trap. As soon as the U.S. carrier strike group entered Greenland's waters, the Russian Aerospace Forces, VKS, activated the Peresvet ground-based laser system located on the Kola Peninsula. The high-energy laser beam was directed straight into orbit, blinding the U.S. KH-11 optical reconnaissance satellites flying over the area. At the same time, the latest generation Murmansk BN electronic warfare system, secretly deployed on autonomous ice stations surrounding the U.S. fleet, simultaneously fired radio waves into the ionosphere. Taking advantage of the geomagnetic storm, the ionized atmosphere became a giant reflective mirror, bending all U.S. active radar signals and scattering them back to the sea surface from thousands of different angles. As a result, the U.S. Aegis computer system was flooded with ghost data. On the radar screen, U.S. officers saw 5,000 virtual targets hurtling toward them at Mach 10 from all directions. GPS was disrupted, and communication frequencies were jammed by dense white noise. Not stopping there, Russia also activated cyber warfare through floating hydrophones, infiltrating the U.S. fleet's wireless logistics network and paralyzing the automatic ammunition coordination system. The U.S. fleet was completely isolated, falling into an electronic matrix in the first minute of the encounter. Growler counterstrike, piercing the Murmansk mirror. The situation was precarious, but refusing to sit and wait for death, the U.S. commander ordered an immediate scramble under M and Alpha. 4 EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft were catapulted into the pitch-black sky at maximum acceleration. The Growler squadron's mission was to find and destroy the source of the jamming. The American pilots activated the AN/LQ-218 passive signal reception system and flew in a spread formation at extremely low altitude, just 30 meters above the sea surface, using the curvature of the Earth and chaotic sea waves to conceal their own radar reflection signals. The Growler's onboard computer system began triangulating the high-output signal sources, beaming into the ionosphere. Within just 45 seconds, the passive sensors locked onto the coordinates of 3 Murmansk BN signal stations. They were not located on land, but were camouflaged on massive drifting icebergs 18 nautical miles from the fleet. The Growler squadron leader immediately armed the weapons. 8 advanced AGM-88G AGM-ER anti-radiation missiles left their launchers, streaking away at Mach 2, tearing through the Arctic night. 3 columns of fire erupted violently on the horizon. The Russian transmitting antennas were torn apart. The mirror reflection effect collapsed instantly. On the Aegis screen, 5,000 phantom targets vanished, restoring a clean tactical picture. Internal communication channels were restored. The U.S. had pierced the electronic wall and regained control of the visual field. But they did not expect that the moment the American missiles detonated was also the moment they themselves activated the Northern Fleet's second, more devastating trap. F-35 versus Su-57. The battle for the Arctic sky. The heat from the American missile engines was clearly visible on the OLS-50 sensors of the Su-57 Felon stealth fighter squadron lying in wait at an altitude of 18,000 meters. Russian pilots immediately launched R-37M missiles at the E-2D Hawkeye flying behind the American formation. Losing the Hawkeye meant the American fleet lost its long-range air combat coordination capability. Because Russia used passive mid-course infrared guidance, the American RWR remained completely silent until the missile's active radar seeker activated in the final seconds. But the real nightmare lay with the escort wing. To protect the Growler, the U.S. deployed F-35C fighters accompanied by XQ-58 Valkyrie drones. Russia responded with Illinois 22 pp Porobchik electronic warfare aircraft. They emitted high-power microwave pulses that directly attacked the data link. This technique caused a concentrated energy flow that physically overloaded the transceivers, severely disrupting the Valkyrie's processing algorithm. The IFF identification friend or foe system was reversed, marking the very F-35C as leading the way as enemy targets. They simultaneously locked onto the F-35CS and opened their weapons bays. In a life-or-death moment, the F-35C pilots immediately isolated the compromised drones from the command network to prevent the missile launch. Although they saved themselves thanks to their lightning-fast reaction, the U.S. defense formation was completely shattered. Taking advantage of the chaos, Russian Su-57 fighters swooped down from above like eagles to pick off the scattered American aircraft. Murana-M drones and Helios laser defense. At this moment, the sea around the U.S. fleet began to boil. From the thick fog, dozens of strange objects cut through the waves and rushed toward them. The ANRSPS-73 surface radar on the escort ship scanned the area, but the signals were unclear due to interference from small icebergs. These were Russian Murana-M unmanned surface vessels. Unlike conventional suicide boats, the Murana-M is designed as a semi-submersible, exposing only its communication antenna and small optical sensors the size of a soda bottle on the sea surface. Its composite hull, coated with radar-absorbing material combined with its movement among 4-meter highways, made it nearly invisible to electronic surveillance systems. The U.S. fleet responded immediately with the most advanced weaponry equipped on a leading Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, Flight IA. The Helios high-energy laser system, 60 kilowatts. In theory, the laser beam, traveling at the speed of light, would incinerate the Russian USV's optical sensors in an instant with absolute precision. The rotating laser turret projected invisible beams of energy at the USVs, which were approaching at a speed of 50 knots. However, Russia had carefully calculated the timing of the attack. The thick layer of freezing fog filled with suspended water crystals became the perfect natural shield. When shone into the fog, the Tyndall effect occurred intensely. The beam's energy was scattered and attenuated by 90% before reaching the target. America's future weapon became powerless against the basic physics of the Arctic environment. Realizing that lasers were ineffective, the American gunners were forced to switch to conventional combat mode, using 127mm and 25mm cannons to fire at point-blank range. Although most were shot down, one Murana-M slipped through the barrage and dove straight into the stern of the escort destroyer. The high-explosive charge detonated right at the waterline. The explosion did not sink the 9,000-ton ship, but the shockwave ripped apart the towed array cable, completely destroying the ANSQR-20 multipurpose sonar system. In an instant, the fleet's most sensitive ears for detecting submarines were cut off, exposing a deadly gap beneath the ocean. And that was precisely when the real monster of the Northern Fleet began to move. Deep Sea Duel, Virginia-class versus Yasen-M submarines. The loss of the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer's towed array sonar, MFTA, system was a green light signal for the Russian submarine force. The real enemy began to emerge from the seabed. The Yasen-M-class nuclear attack submarine, the K-571 Krasnoyarsk. Its mission was to neutralize the final weapon of the U.S. fleet, the Virginia Block V-class attack submarine USS Colorado that was submerged, escorting the aircraft carrier. Russia launched 4mm 74M acoustic decoys that separated from the mothership, simulating propeller noise and the sound of opening a large torpedo tube hatch. The USS Colorado's passive sonar system immediately sounded a red alert with 4 targets surrounding it and preparing to fire. In this situation, the American captain did not have enough time to analyze the situation, so he was forced to order the launch of Mk-48 ADCAP torpedoes at the targets in self-defense. But this action inadvertently created a distinct acoustic signature, revealing the exact location of the American submarine. Meanwhile, the Russian submarine remained hidden in the sonar baffle zone, silently firing a super-quiet UGST-1 physic-electric torpedo. The American submarine only detected the danger when the torpedo was just 2 kilometers away. The USS Colorado was forced to cut the cable, launch decoy flays, and perform a crash dive to the limit depth to avoid the strike. Although it narrowly escaped death, the American escort submarine was pushed out of its tactical position. The aircraft carrier USS Gerald R on the surface had now lost its last layer of protective shielding. The firing line was clear. The Russian hunters began to target their biggest prey. U.S. Navy neutralizes Russia's hypersonic gamble. 2 Zircon hypersonic missiles erupted from a Yeltsin submarine, accelerating to Mach 9 the instant they broke through the ocean surface. It was an all-or-nothing gamble by Russia's Northern Fleet. Moscow understood the plasma envelope surrounding the missiles would radiate intense heat, making them visible to American infrared sensors, but wagered that traveling at 3 kilometers per second, the weapons would arrive before U.S. defenses could react. They were wrong. The moment the plasma cloud disrupted Aegis radar tracking, the American ship's IRST system shifted into passive mode, locking onto the twin blazing signatures streaking across the sky. The U.S. response was not gunfire, but light. A 60-kilowatt Helios laser mounted on an escort destroyer fired a silent beam directly into a missile's nose cone. The laser couldn't melt the Zircon's heat-shielded body, but it didn't need to. It blinded the missile's optical seeker during its final approach. Disoriented, the guidance system faltered. Seconds later, U.S. vessels launched Nulker Mk-53 active decoys. Flying blind at hypersonic speed, the missiles locked onto the massive false signatures, swerved violently, lost stability, and slammed into the ocean just 2 kilometers from the USS Ford. Russia's speed advantage had collided with America's layered defenses, and lost. Below the waves, the USS Colorado re-entered the fight. After diving to evade the initial strike, the submarine went silent, drifting into the Russian vessel's blind zone. Using magnetic anomaly detection, the crew confirmed the target. The captain gave the command. An Mk-48 Mod 7 ADCAP torpedo burst from its tube, homing on the submarine's wake before detonating beside the propeller. The blast twisted the drive shaft and wrecked the rudder. The Yeltsin suffered a catastrophic propulsion failure. With buoyancy systems compromised, the submarine plunged uncontrollably toward the depths. To prevent the hull from collapsing, the Russian captain ordered an emergency blow, forcing the crippled boat back to the surface directly under the guns of the U.S. fleet. Outro. The Arctic sunrise revealed disaster for Moscow. Russia's prized nuclear-attack submarine bobbed helplessly on the waves, unable to dive or fight. Losses on both sides were so severe that any continuation risked spiraling into nuclear confrontation. Above, a Russian Su-57 squadron found itself cornered. Ground radars were destroyed, the A-100 early warning aircraft jammed, fuel running low, and 12 U.S. Navy F-35CS had them boxing from every direction. With no alternative, the squadron leader rocked his wings in surrender and requested escort out of contested airspace. Farther north, icebreakers carrying the Murmansk electronic warfare system retreated toward Russian waters, scrambling to avoid American retaliation. Operation Arctic Sentinel was complete. The United States had not only defended its radar installation, it had captured vital Zircon frequency data and Yeltsin acoustic signatures. That concludes today's analysis. Do you think Moscow would accept this outcome or escalate to nuclear retaliation? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown.